welcome to episode 52 of my POA podcast, Black Hand and Beyond. Tonight is The DeBurr Boys is the title, and as you're going to find out, it's about a couple families, the Davis family from Iowa, and then Diane raised her three boys in POAs, Denton, Drew, and Dylan. And also Diane's brother, Mike Davis, grew up in POAs, and then he became a professional horseman in the quarter horse industry, and so has Denton and Drew. They're both young professionals now in the quarter horse industry, making a name for themselves. So it's kind of a where are they now, two-generation deal. We're going to be talking to three special guests tonight, so that's a first for POA podcast. We're going to be talking to Diane first, and then her brother Mike, and then later we'll be talking to Drew at the end. So I got a lot to get to tonight, a lot of history and modern stuff, and kind of what POA can do for people to go on and become equestrians. So right now we're joined by Diane. Hello, Diane.
Hi.
Hi,
everyone.
There she is. So Tracy said she's on. So, and there's Shelly. There's Lammers are on, Mark Lammers and Shelly. So, yeah. That's one thing we're going to talk about is some of the contacts you made growing up and some of the legendary POAers that helped your family out. But first, let's kind of talk about, you raised three sons in POAs, right?
Yeah.
And,
all three of them graduated out.
Okay, they all graduated out. And I know the youngest one showed in lead line. Were they all young enough to show in lead line in POAs?
Denton started out in walk trot.
Walk trot, okay.
Yep, so he started out in walk trot, and then the other two were in lead line.
Okay, so pretty early then. So, and the oldest two, Denton and Drew, they're both professional horsemen in the quarter horse industry now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Both still in Iowa?
Yeah, both still in Iowa. Denton serves on the NSBA board.
Okay.
So I'm proud of that fact.
Right. Okay.
So they kind of specialize in the futurity stuff and the younger horses. They've always liked younger horses. So.
Okay, and they're in the snaffle bit, right? The young. Yeah. Okay, so that's what they've graduated to. I know they both have a good reputation. That's why I'm doing this. Plus, they're both POA kids. So, and then it's interesting because your brother did the same thing. He kind of gravitated to reiners, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah. That's what he.
Okay, and we're going to be talking to Mike later on. So, so your mom and dad was a big part of this, of course, because they got you guys going, showing POA. So kind of walk me down that road, kind of how they started getting you involved.
Okay, we started with the Murphills. The Murphills kind of got us all going in that direction, and so mom and dad hopped on board, and we had so many great adventures with Ed and Doug and Alan and Carolyn. Just fantastic memories, but we always had nice horses to show. They did a lot for us, and we just showed horses. I mean, we just went about every weekend.
Right.
We tried one year, which Mike might mention too. We tried one year. Dad said, "Well, let's take a family vacation." And we went to South Dakota, and it was the biggest nightmare. We ended up leaving early, and we all said then, we're only going to horse shows. We're not taking any family vacation. So, but we got nice horses from Milford Lammers. They helped us a lot. We just had so many wonderful people in POA that helped us along the way.
Right.
Harry and Chestnut, they provided the boys with horses to ride. Burdette Johnson, he was great at coming over to our place and giving the boys pointers and stuff. But just a lot of people took us under their wing, and POA is a very positive experience for kids. I would not have changed anything in their upbringing because, they could do it all. They could clip, they could bathe. And in other industries, you don't find a lot of kids that are completely hands-on. So It's always interesting for me to go to, Quarter Horse Congress this last year, and I see Haley Perkapile, and I see Karen Cobbs and her family, and then Heather Goldsby and her kids, and it's just it brings all those memories back, that just a good close community,
Right.
Susie Craig and I showed together, Bonnie Lewis and I showed together. You just don't get that in other industries, that type of camaraderie.
Right. Well, I know a lot of POA families, they used to swap kids for the summer sometimes. You know, they would go
Oh,
for a couple weeks to, it might be states away and stay, and then those kids would come back and stay in Minnesota or Iowa or whatever, and they might be from Oklahoma or who knows where. And
yep.
yeah, the
I
whole
used,
families did that or became friends
yep.
that way.
I spent several summers down at Shirley Denny's
Okay.
place riding. Have kind of a camp down there, and so I'd go down there and spend a couple weeks down there riding, and then Susie would come up to our place and give us lessons. I mean, it was just a good group, a nice group of people.
Right. So you
Most of my
mentioned the,
members.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned the Murfelds. So some of the people watching are newer. You know, we have a lot of older people that watch it. We're in POAs in the 60s and 70s, and then some. So they were the ninth members. Ed Murfeld
Yeah.
was, and then of course they were MPs. So if you guys ever see MPs on this show and other things on Facebook, that was Murfeld Ponies. And then Doug became an auctioneer, and his brother just died here a couple months ago. Right, Alan passed away.
Yep.
Yeah, but Doug came back in it, and you guys ended up with some of his really good POAs.
We traveled. The boys traveled several times with Doug. I mean, it was always anytime with the Murphys was always a good time. I mean, Audrey, the mother, was a wonderful cook. We'd go there on the weekends and talk about horse shows, talk about horses, and see their horses, and just go over bloodlines and things like that. They really mentored my family.
Well, in the
I can't.
70s, it was hard to beat Doug Murfeld in halter.
It was.
You know?
It was.
They won the
And
futurity a lot of times, the international futurity, and then he won, Grand Champion Stallion with Big Creek's Jim Dandy, and yeah.
and then I showed Big Creek Jim Dandy for him a while
Did you?
too back in my riding days. But
Okay.
it was always an adventure when 'cause Dad would he'd always help Doug with showing because they'd end up winning, and so you had to have several handlers take um, ponies in. But
Right.
it's always an interesting travel when it was me, my dad, and Doug Merkel traveling down the road. It was always yeah.
I can imagine. That's a lot of knowledge right there. Yeah. So Keith,
Always a lot of fun.
right. Keith Davis was your dad. What's your mom's name?
Beth.
Beth. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and your dad bought some POAs and tried to do some, did some racing with them, didn't he? Chariot racing and stuff?
Did the chariot racing. He did all. He did a lot of riding. He never showed riding in POAs. He just showed in halter. But he just always loved horses, and so that's where we got our love for the horses. And I mean, he managed to travel. Like the Elroy Latch Trophy meant something to me, and of course I made it mean something to my kids. And so he was there when Denton retired it.
Right.
He passed away when Drew was in his final year, so my mom got to see that, and Doug got to present it to him. So those are like special memories to have. That's something that
Right.
always I'm very proud of.
Right. That's something to cherish for sure. Yeah, and that's something that the horses does, and the ponies, the POAs. It just brings the people together, and those memories like that. It's cool. We have the picture of you guys when he won I think probably when he
yep.
retired it, when Leanne's holding it there. And
Yep,
that
exactly.
picture, it's cut off, but if you click on it somewhere else on this Facebook page, you can see it. So, and that's your dad right there with this. They caught him in the middle of a laugh or a smile.
Yeah. So yeah, he was. I mean, they traveled a lot to see the kids show at some of the big shows. Him and Leonard Lewis would be the gate man.
Right.
Lots of
For sure.
shows.
They were permanent fixtures on the gate, for sure.
They were perfect pictures, and there was all kinds of stories you could hear there. So
Yeah, not fit for the podcast, but that's okay. So,
the interesting thing was they were friends with Ruth, and when Ruth got cancer, about that she had went through one set and got through that, and then Leonard got cancer, and then my dad, and then Carl off. Well, Ruth had this deal. I guess they all made the deal, but whenever anybody went and they went to the funeral, they were to knock on the casket. I had forgot all about it, but at my dad's funeral, whenever they're getting ready to, put him in the ground, these kids are looking at me and they're like, "Why is that lady knocking on your dad's casket?" And I said, "Oh, well, she's here yet. She knocked it." So
Right.
that was like they're supposed to do that. But
that was Ruth. Ruth did that?
that was
Yeah.
yep. That leopard that I showed. that horse, we bought it from Ruth at the sale when I first got married, and his name was Burley. We called him Burley
because of her
he would
husband.
yeah, and well, Burley would give this Burley beer, so he would drink beer all the time. The Rogerses, we got many great ponies from the Rogers family. I can't say enough about tribute to Prince. The CA, Shiloh is wonderful. The Fly the Gold, that was, a $500 horse.
Really? Yeah. That's the
But
thing
yeah,
about Rogers. They didn't ask big money for their stuff. They brought it through the ring too, and they'd sell it. And Fly the
and they'd
Gold
always,
became a great. That's him right there. We're looking at the picture of him on the Facebook page, and
he was very special. And Wimpy's Desert Storm was I think my dad bought it for Mike for resale, and then Mike liked her and kept her, but she was like a $500 pony too. I mean, we just never spent a whole lot. We never could afford to buy broke horses. We had to make the horse,
right.
and always had at least 2 or 3 that went to the sale because that's just how we did. How you did back then. The sale was amazing. Even when they had sales in Marshalltown, and we'd always make sure we had at least 1 or 2 for the sale. We'd get some from Milford Lammers, Mike and I, and bring them to the sale and sell them. And Milford was a wonderful man.
I've got to know Mark. I never did know Milford, his dad, because they were when we were getting in it, they were kind of getting out of it. But I've gotten to know Mark just through instant message. He sent me about 200 pictures, and I was like, wow, he didn't know I probably couldn't go to work that day because I just sat there scrolling through my phone looking at all those pictures. Of all, and I recognized a lot of them, of course, but some of them were in color and different angles. And we have 4 pictures up over here on the side. Mike's on Wimpy's Desert Storm, and then I don't know if that's your youngest on him down below, or it's one of your boys on.
Probably, I think Drew.
Drew.
He was pretty rotor, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's probably at the South Dakota, that might have been Drew too, or on the stud, yeah. Drew. And then that's you with one of the Lammers, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, holding that one. So that was on the side.
My dad wanted us always to be in cart, and we had more cart wrecks than probably anyone I know of. And neither Mike or I wanted to do cart, but every once in a while he'd get us to do one because he always thought that was such a neat thing to do cart. But we were a little skeptical.
Right. We tried to do that at home. Because I wouldn't ride. I was the heavy-set kid my whole life, and I was the nerdy pedigree guy. But my dad tried to get me to do cart, and I never did do it. We had Driftwood Series Tomahawk that was bred by Murfelds, and he was kind of fast. He was a little hot, so he looked good on a 4-wheeler and on a cutter. But if you put him in a 2-wheeler, he wasn't used to it. He'd never shown like that, so he was more of a parade horse.
Yep. Yeah, they were. Yeah, we've had some. We showed that one in cart, but Dad broke a lot of them out to cart. He always did that first before he got on and rode them, but not too many times did we. We had one horse that's kind of at the end just before he moved. Mike and I built an arena at the home place, but when we were out at the other place, my dad had this little pony, and he was just, trying to get the kids. They're like, this is just going to be perfect. I have no idea what happened. But I came down there, and the horse was actually facing my dad in the cart. And he said, I think we're going to stop on the cart.
We're going to stop,
The horse didn't hit her, but it was like, oh, my God.
Yeah. You can have some train wrecks for sure, especially if they're not used to it. Well, just like at the national show, they go for points, and that's what the criticism is sometimes. But I'm still glad POAs do it because we're the versatile breed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the one that you can try out, that POA is really the only organization that you can try everything out. Everything else is so competitive, really competitive, and people there pursue, they either like to do English or they do the trail, there's not that many horses on that level that can do, and if they're an all around, they're major money. I mean, that's just
right.
How
well, look at your family. Your brother went into reining. Your sons are in pleasure. There's kids that are in English and hunt seat stuff, or jumping. A lot of POA kids, especially girls, went into jumping as adults on warm bloods or whatever, or even quarter horses. And and that's all, they all came from one breed, riding ponies and everything in a day, at the state shows. So,
I'd
be remiss if I don't mention Doug Sorrell because He used to prop up little Dylan and use him as a gimmick, or as a little model. I don't want to call him a gimmick, but he used him as an advertising tool. Remember, he always had him up on the thing, and you guys sold ponies in that ring, and Doug would get him up there and show him off. I don't know if he's watching tonight. He watches a lot of these, and
I probably watching. He said he was going to tonight. So
okay.
Dylan was one of those that he was. You never could find him because he was always somewhere when it was time to show, and there was just always, if there was anything going on, Dylan was involved. I think it was Kansas. I think it was him, and I don't know if it was a younger Hampton boy or it was somebody. Anyway, the police came because said somebody was trying to break into campers. Well, here it was, these two little boys. They were trying to get in a door. They thought the kid was there. It wasn't. It was Dylan. So
right.
He was lost a lot of the time. We couldn't find him, and then he'd tell us, "No, I'm not lost. You are."
How many years are in between your two, the oldest and the youngest?
10 years between. They're all 5 years apart.
All 5 years apart. Okay. I was going to bring this up because my mom and dad had Kirk, Keith, and Kent, and when I would get in trouble as a kid, that's what I would get called. I'd get, hey, Kirk, Keith, Kent. They'd go down the line. And I wondered if you ever did that with Dylan, if you would call him Denton, Drew, or, if you...
Yeah. I get them all mixed up. It just depends on what's going on. I'll call him each one of them by a different name. But.
Right. Yeah. That's fine because of the three letters. Yeah, the same letters.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of your kids. I don't, I got to say, I don't know them very well now. I haven't had conversations with them as adults. I'm about to with Drew here, but I don't get to that many horse shows. Sometimes I do. Like I go to the World Show because it's so close in Oklahoma City, and every once in a while I'll see a POA kid. Sometimes I don't recognize them until they call the name. And then I'm pointing like a fan, I'm like, I seen that kid show, but it's funny.
I know. I was watching down at the Congress. I was just in there sitting, and I kept looking at this girl. She would go by, and I thought, gosh, I should know her. I think I know her. And then it's Haley Perkapile. And it was like, oh, and she had a fantastic ride and place. I might have even won. I don't know, but she had a great ride. But afterwards, I said, oh, it's just so nice to see how they've progressed, and that they still have that love of horses, and then they enjoy doing the horses.
Right.
That's what I look at my boys sometimes, and I get just tired watching them. If I go down there to spend a few days, and they're riding all these horses, and I'm like, they're eating supper at 9 o'clock, and I'm like, how do you do this? They're like, we love it. Remember Grandpa always told us we should always do something that we love. If you love it, it's a job.
It's not Rourke if you truly love what you do for a living, right?
They do, and same with my brother. I mean, it's hard for us all to get together. We try a couple times a year, but with all three of them and their show schedules, it's pretty tough. We spend a lot of phone time, but I mean, it's just tough to get together. But
Denton's traveling tonight, right? He's headed somewhere.
Yeah, Denton's to Wyoming tonight, so he's got a show there, and I think you're staying home this weekend. So, but they're just busy. Saturdays are really busy. That's when all the clients come and want to ride their horses.
Oh, I bet.
Weekends are, pretty tough to get them free, I should say.
Right. Well, horse equestrians are kind of like athletes. We all play sports. Well, not all of us, but most of us, especially if you grew up in a small town, you played some form of sports from about third grade to high school. But then not many of us can play. Some of us are lucky enough to play a little bit in college, and then very few people become pros. Well, horses are the same way. You can play around with them, but to go to that next level, you got to have something a little special, and work hard at it. So.
Yep, I think I sent one of Drew on a kind of a roanish horse, and that horse kind of has a little interesting story. It's a quarter horse. It's Zippo Mr. Goodbar, out of Goodbar, and when Drew started working at in Illinois, he had kind of a pick of horses, and for some reason that horse stood out as a yearling, just stood out to Drew, and said, I kind of like to bring him in. They're like, no, I don't think he's going to amount to anything. And Drew's like, just let me have some time with him. Well, he ended up winning everything as a 2-year-old, and he just had a special personality. And they're like, how did you know that? He goes, I don't really know. I guess from years of looking at horses, you just kind of get a little bit of an idea what you like. And he goes, he just happened to be a diamond in the rough.
Right. Right. Well, spending that much
So,
time around them, you start to, it's a sixth sense, for sure. Yeah.
yep,
And that's why they're good at it too. So when people go to them.
yep,
So,
yeah. They have had several POA clients, that have stayed with the POAs, or they maybe some of them have moved on to horses. But
right.
like I said, it's a small world, and I am proud of the fact that they do have a good reputation, and I am proud of that because their mothers could, kind of used to cause some trouble. So they're not like that.
No, not you, Diane. You never caused any trouble. So.
No, but
Well,
but I can't emphasize enough for anybody listening that has little kids or grandkids, or I can't think of a better organization um, to have them in for horses. I mean, it's where they got their start at. It's where I got my start at, and it's just you can't beat it. You
right.
know, families always say, it's money, and it is money. It's expensive to show horses and stuff, but I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Right. Well, you
You
learn
know,
so much in POAs. I'm not knocking saddle clubs or 4-H or anything, but it's one step up. But then it's not the huge breeds where it costs so much, or you're gonna pull
right?
in and you're gonna get made fun of because of your rig or something like that. POAs isn't about all that. They're about
No,
helping each other and in competition too. But then you get to
right?
meet breeders and you get to meet show people, now trainers. And when you
Yeah,
were kids, there wasn't as many trainers around. You kind of had to do it all yourself, which there's still POA kids doing a lot of it themselves, but the
right.
trainers have come in, and that's helped promote POAs having stables. Any town that has a big stable has always helped POAs, of course,
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
kids get to see them. And but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a great place to start, nurture, and well, it
It's the
worked for
best.
your boys. The ones that wanted to go on, they went on. So yeah,
Never, it always kept them out of trouble because they were always busy doing something with the horses. They did sports too, but it just kind of kept them out of trouble. And we kind of laugh about, none of them ever broke a bone or anything showing horses.
right.
And Drew graduated from high school, and I don't know, riding a bike, and he shattered his collarbone. And we're like, all these years you've been breaking out horses, and
And a bike
shattering
did it.
because the bike did it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious.
But yeah, I just and it's what's really neat to me is like even years after I'm done showing, like the Corn family, I spent time with Nikki and Shane down at the Congress. Eddie showed down there, so it's like you have lifelong friendships, that you just have with you. You know that you can always be across country, and if
Right.
you need something or in a bind, you can call them and they'll be there.
Yeah.
That's anybody in POA. It's just like I said, I can't say enough good about it.
I tell that to my wife. I said I haven't had a POA in 10 years, but I'm still involved, like with this, and I go to
Right.
the national show. But I said we could be in a lot of states and have car problems, and I could call somebody or go on Facebook now and message somebody, and within a half an hour, somebody'd be there. And I'm not
Yeah.
bragging. I'm bragging about POAs,
Right.
because
Right.
there's just so many people that you meet and from all walks of life. That's what I liked about POAs was, we had friends that was a baker, a school teacher, a carpenter, a house
Right.
painter. I mean, it was, and they
Yeah.
all raised and showed POAs on the weekends. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a small world. I mean, you just always stay in touch with each other, and it's just nice. I
right,
mean, I consider most of them my best friends. They're just always there if I need them.
right. Well, Diane,
So
this has been great talking to you, and I'm sure you have plenty of other stories, just like I had Allison Usler on a couple of weeks ago, and
oh,
we could have talked for 3 hours,
I
all her
know.
stories. But I got to get to Mike and Drew, so
Oh,
that could be interesting. I've never spoken to Mike. I think I said hi to him once. He came to watch your boys at a show, and I walked by
yep.
him, and I knew who he was from back in the day with Shiloh, and
Yep.
and I'd seen his. So yeah, well, we're going to talk to him and see, kind of talk about what he's doing now. He might be slowing down a little bit now. He's getting older. How old is Mike? He might not want to say.
I'm 61. He's got to be 58, right
Okay.
around him.
So you're the older of the two. Okay.
I'm the oldest.
You're
Oh,
my
of course,
brother's age. Yeah, my brother's 61. So,
yeah.
okay.
So everybody thinks I'm younger because I still have hair. He's yeah, I'm fine.
I'm
He's
going
your
to tell
man.
him that. I'm going to tell him. I thought he was older. I really did. I just thought he was always tall, and, when he showed Shiloh and showing a
Yeah.
stallion like that, it just seemed.
Yeah, there wasn't, many. I mean, there was probably more when Mike was doing it. There was several when I was showing, but like when Denton started out with the stallion, there wasn't too many kids,
No.
and then there became more and more. But it just wasn't a thing a lot of people like to do.
Right. They did a lot more back in the day, and now you can promote them without doing that. So, yeah,
Yep.
without you. Shelly Mark Lammer says hello, Mike and Diane. So they're watching tonight. So
Good deal.
that's Mark.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure is on that account. So, all
Yep.
right,
And
Diane, I'm gonna call Mike. So.
okay, you'll have more about Mike because I think Mark knew Mike better than he knew me. So
Okay.
good deal. Well, take care and have a good night.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. Okay.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I want to thank Diane for being a guest tonight and setting this all up. I actually contacted her again via instant message. What would we do without Messenger and Facebook and stuff? I know I use it all the time for this for sure. We're on this on Facebook right now. But I just told her I had an idea, and she started naming off names. I could do a show every week just on some of the people she named, different kids that grew up in POAs that are showing mainly in corridors. But if you delve deeper, you can find all different types of breeds POA kids are excelling in, some professionally, some just showing, for fun. So we're going to call her brother Mike now. Like I said, I've never spoken to Mike, so we didn't warm up for this or anything, but to me, that'll be a better call. He's a professional horseman in Iowa, and he grew up showing Wimpy's Desert Storm and CA's Shiloh and quite a few others, so he'll have some cool stories, I'm sure.
Hello.
Hey, is this Mike?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Mike, this is Kent. You're live on Facebook. Just wanted to warn you, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just got done talking to your sister about POAs. We had a good conversation, talking about her boys and you a little bit, but she knew I was going to call you. So, and then of course your mom and dad and how they got you guys started showing POAs. So
Yep.
I remember you when we first got in it. You were showing Shiloh. You were, I think, about ready to age out.
Yep. That probably would have been about right. Yep.
Yeah, in the early '80s. So.
Yep.
Yeah, just kind of go ahead, tell me a few things, like kind of what you remember showing POAs and starting out, some of the ones you showed the most. I know you showed Wimpy's Desert Storm, right?
Yeah, we bought her. We bought three horses at a sale in Minnesota, 3 POAs at there was a, I don't know what that sale was called back then, but there was always a spring sale, and we bought 3. And I got 2 of them started right away. We sold them right away. We ended up with Wimpy, which is one we wanted to end up with anyway. And yeah, she was and then I had many before her. I can't remember all their names actually. But
That's all right.
yeah, no, the POAs were good for us. We started out. My dad bought a lot of chariot ponies off the track that were colored, that we could register. So
Okay.
we did a lot of sales, and I started a lot of colts, and we sold them,
Right.
and we didn't really know a lot, but we just rode them and made them usable,
Right. That's the main thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you started reining horses, right, after POAs?
Yeah, I got a job when I was in high school working for a pretty famous trainer, starting colts, and then it just took off. I left right after graduation and went to Texas for, I don't know, like 17, 18 years, and spent a couple of years in Italy training horses.
Okay.
And, yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought you went to Texas, but I didn't know you went to Italy. So you're back in Iowa now, right? Been there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never really planned on staying up here. I came home people started sending me horses to ride, and I just stayed.
Well, good trainers are hard to find, especially once you get a good one. It seems like people don't want to give up on them, because if you do a good job for someone, why change? So,
yeah. I've been very, very blessed with the career, because somehow my dad knew more than I did probably that I would probably stick with horses, And we had an auction company at the time, and I was either going to auctioneer or ride horses, and I got a job riding horses. And yeah, I've just had opportunities and been
Right.
with some skilled horsemen, and yeah, and I have to say, and I will say, if it wouldn't have been for the POAs, I wouldn't be here. I can assure you of that.
Right, that's how you got your start. Diane and I were talking about that, how it's such a good foundation to create little equestrians, and then they can go off like you chose reining, but your nephews have went into the pleasure deal and
Yep.
quarter horse, and a lot of people go into jumping, especially a lot of girls. Women end up being jumpers, and of course dressage isn't in POAs, but you got that basics through hunt seat and the English stuff, and a lot of kids go on to do dressage too. So what's some of the bloodlines you like in the quarter horses, or that you've had good luck with?
Well, I've had a lot of luck with the Whippy's Little Steps. I had a really great horse, and I've had several of them, but I had one that was pretty special. I like the Top Sail Whizzes, of course, and just trying to think what all we got in the barn right now. I got several Gutta Trashes in the barn right now. Let's see. I got some pale-faced Dunnets.
Okay.
I got Spookscotta Guns in the barn.
I feel like I'm reading through the journal right here. I'm flipping the pages as you're reading these. Kind of the who's who, yeah.
Yep.
Boy, the reining industry is really kind of like POAs did. It had to evolve, but reining's really changed since you've got in it, hasn't it? I mean, the last 20, 30 years,
It really has. The breeding program has really taken off that they started back in the early 80s. And because, for a long time, the reining was just, if they didn't make a pleasure horse, they'd be a reiner. If they weren't a cutter, wouldn't, work a cow, make them a reiner. If they were two slow barrel horses, make them a reiner.
Right. It was an afterthought almost.
Yeah, but after the breeding program, breeding great minds and great athletes to great athletes and good-minded horses, and so they're fun to ride.
Right. Yeah, they're fun to look at too. I mean, they have a lot of chrome on them now. Well, not all of them, but most of them do. They have a lot of chrome, and they're short. I can't believe how short a lot of them are. But
yeah, so a lot of people come through the barn and are like, "Is that a baby?" And I'm like, "No, that's a 3-year-old."
That's a 3-year-old, yeah. My dad seen Hollywood done it when we were hauling horses, and he put his hand on his withers, and he called me up. He said, he's POA height. He said he could be a POA if he had spots on him. So
yeah, like Lena and Tari's Catalyst and them, they weren't 14 hands.
Right.
They were,
yeah.
But that's kind of what you want. You kind of want a little rust. You want them kind of low to the ground. And we have some big horses too, but nothing like what's in the pleasure industry or the English industry.
Right. Well, I always said quarter horse was like 5 or 6 different breeds. You have the English horse, and now the pleasure horse is way different than the cutter and the reiner. Then the race horse is different, and then of course the quarter horse is way different.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
yeah, but it's all one breed. So POAs has tried to stay different than that, but it's kind of went that way a little bit. You can go to a show and definitely see, okay, there's some halter POAs. They're probably not going to be showing in games. And then there's some POAs that, are more, reining's still trying to, it's big in POAs, but the pleasure took over about probably 20 years ago. The sudden impulse bloodline really, because it was short enough, it really changed POAs. And
that's the interesting part with the POAs, and I hope they don't lose what I remember. The POAs were so versatile.
Right.
And at that young age where the kids are, you can just do so many things with them. And you can find the discipline you want to be in, later on in life. I was actually going to try to be a cutter or a reiner, and it worked out. But I knew the foundation that I had with the young horses. My dad, I don't know if my sister told you, my dad made us do every event when we were young,
Right.
I really don't like, I appreciate it, but I don't like halter horses. Like I don't, and I remember he gave me a big whipping because I had a gelding wasn't going to win nothing, but
right.
do it, and I didn't show very good, and he didn't care where we placed as long as you tried.
As you tried, yeah. But
And
that
I
gave
remember,
you a respect for different disciplines too.
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
I remember, we only had one English saddle, and we was at Fort Dodge, Iowa, at a POA show, and I did jumping bareback.
Wow.
Football.
That's
So,
back in the day, yeah, for sure. Now they'd
yeah,
have a heart attack.
but that's one thing that I always appreciated about the POAs is one, it was fairly affordable for our family to do it, and like I said, my dad made us do. I had to do English, which I didn't care for, but he made we had to try it all,
All right.
and at least once not every show, just but he made us, and I thought that was a good idea. And my vacations nowadays are the same way. I always go find I've rode standardbred horses and saddlebred horses. That's kind of what I do,
Right.
But I think from him, because I do appreciate all the different disciplines that is out there for us.
I always laugh when family members or like my wife's family, I'll be talking about the Chinnatique ponies or paints or something, and they'll say, well, we thought you were a POA guy. And I'm like, well, just because I'm a POA guy, I love all horses, all things horses. So I might not be an expert in like draft horses or thoroughbreds, but I can tell you stuff about them because I just love the animals, So, yeah. I think riding English helps a lot of kids, especially boys. The boys that would ride English a little bit, I think that made them better riders. For sure.
Yeah,
and POAs did that because to go for high points and stuff and Supremes, you had to do everything. And,
Yep.
Yeah. So you showed Shiloh. Is that what you graduated showing, Shiloh, or did you still?
I think I probably did graduate out on Shiloh.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think it was on Wimpy.
Yeah.
I don't think it was on her. I think it was on CA.
He was a little bigger than her, right? For sure.
Yeah, he was a little more. There's a little more to him. The body.
Right. Well, he was a Gold Prince son, so that's when POAs started changing for sure. Well, then the height changed not long after you graduated out. They went to 14 hands, and that changed everything. So, and now, I mean, that's, they can use, it used to be you'd have to get a son of somebody, like back then you'd find a son of Sonny D-Bar or a son of Two-Eye Jack or whoever, or a granddaughter. Well, now you can go breed to Chocolatey or Sudden Impulse or whoever, I know they're older bloodlines and that, but stuff like that, like Kissing the Girls is a horse that's a quarter horse that's getting popular in POAs now. And you can do that because of the 14 hands. So.
Sure.
And I think people just know more about color genetics now. Well, we all do. There's been a lot more testing now on color, so you can be careful. But
it was actually mine today was at the barn, and we were trying to pick a stud. So for his mare, and he's got an app on his phone that you punch in the color of your mare and the color of the stud, and it kind of gives you what you're probably going to end up with.
Really, that's cool. Yeah. I need to build that for POAs. We'll sell it here on the podcast. Yeah, it's a little harder in POAs, but they do have it now. Like Tracy Keene from Florida, she's coming on there. Love color genetics because she's into all the pattern 1 genes now and all that stuff and the LP. Now they actually can tell if one's born solid. They can do a test to see if it is an Appaloosa. So that takes a lot of the factor out of it. If you can actually show one if it tests to have because it's probably going to color out then, especially because there's color producers every once in a while they'll throw a solid, but then a couple years later it starts coloring, and you miss the early years. So POAs is so much still showing young stuff. The lunge line came in later too. You probably would have been into that as a young guy, but that came in later.
Well, my dad probably made me, but I around with horses. Got to be on top of them.
Right, that's true. Yeah, my wife will laugh because she's a non-horse person, and we'll go to the national show. Well, all day is for halter. Now, they do have some other stuff too, but man, and then we'll get ready to leave and they'll start a futurity or something that night. And she'll say, well, they're just starting to ride them now. Now we're going to leave. And I'm like, well, I like watching the halter classes, but it's just how different people are. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I don't, I haven't been to a POA show for a number of years now, but I think, AQHA put the performance halter in. I thought that was a pretty neat deal because, for the performance horses, the cutters and the reiners and the cow horses that the people that I'm around, you have nice studs or nice mares, but it's a nice event they have now for
right.
what we call the performance horse,
Right. I really enjoyed that too when they did that, because not everybody is Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? I'm aging ourselves a little bit. We're both in our 50s, but I mean, not all of them are muscle bound. Bill big halter horses. All Paints, Appaloosas, same thing. So POAs, your performance horses can still compete against your impressive type halter horses, but it's getting tougher. It's getting tougher, but in the big breeds for sure, I like that, because like you said, you might have a reiner that's beautiful, or a pleasure horse that's got a long neck and a strong top line, but they just ain't all bulked up, but they're still conformations right. Yeah.
Conformations right. It's nice to have a spot to go show your horse,
Right. Yeah, I like that. And the ranch classes, have you been falling into any of that? Ranch classes are getting huge now all across the country.
Yeah, they're good. I sell a lot of reiners that to ranch horse type people, but I asked my customers several years ago if we wanted to go that direction, and none of mine wanted to go that direction. And but now it's getting to where it's pretty lucrative.
Right. It is. It always seems like there's something, I don't want to say a fad, but there's a phase is a better word. Phase in the horse industry. And right now, ranch classes, I mean, it's getting into POAs for sure. And like when I go to judging seminars and stuff, a quarter of the day is spent on talking about ranch classes.
It's a really neat event. And like I say, some of the people, the clients that we get for the reining have come through the breed associations, the Western Pleasure, whatever, and they, like the all around stuff.
Right.
And they training at first, and like we only show them things, once or twice a day, usually just once a day, and normally no more than 2 or 3 times at a show, and they're kind of bored,
Yeah.
So some of our reinings nowadays in our affiliate levels, they're actually offering the ranch horse classes. So my people do it kind of for fun. My customers kind of do it for fun,
Yeah.
But we do sell, like once these horses kind of start figuring out, kind of getting a little tired of the reining, we have another place to go with them. We sell them as these ranch horses now, and that's
sure
been a positive for us.
Right, because they're bred to perform anyway, to move, and they can do all that. And the sound minds, Well, that's neat. That's another avenue for them then. Yeah.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah. Just think 10, 20 years from now, 2 guys might be on a show talking, saying, the ranch division, they used to use reining horses and horses that they wouldn't halter or whatever, and now we have them bred, or we're breeding ranch horses. Of course, they did that for for centuries, breeding quarter horses for ranches. But
yep.
All right, Mike. Well, this was fun. If you got any stories you want to add, go ahead. Diane could have talked for 2 more hours about POA history, but I got to call Drew. Yeah, we're going to talk to him. So
I got a lot of stories. I don't know if I could share my social media though. But
it is a family show. I don't want you to get banned on Facebook. So
exactly. No, my parents. I don't know if my sister told you, but like the day that I turned 16, my dad gave me the truck and the trailer and the horses and said, and give me some money. He says, go on your own now, So from 16 on, I went to all the shows by myself or with, had a good friend, Scott Seek.
Okay.
We'd go to shows together, and I can't remember all the other guys. But the first show I went to on my own was the International at Estes Park, Colorado.
Wow. Yeah.
And no, I enjoyed the POAs. I had a good time, and
it seems like people did that. Jan Jones told me she went to Colorado. I think it was more like in 75, and went by herself. And then her dad I don't know if he flew in to drive her back, or she remembers a cab pulling into the showgrounds and he got out. And and like Julian Nemers and Kevin Jewell and those guys, they used to travel on their own as teenagers, so it's a little different time now, unfortunately, but
there's still some that do it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's getting rarer that you see people doing that. But
Talk
I don't
about
know.
learning responsibility and learning the world, and the country. I mean, you got to be pretty much fending for yourself. And yeah, that's
Like
cool.
Kevin Jules, one of our good judges
Yeah.
uh, for the reining. So yeah,
Yeah, he's made a name for himself for sure, and he was
absolutely.
POA. He grew up in POAs. Him and his brother. I got to meet his dad. I was at their house. I got their magazines. He had them for sale and called Bud Campbell, and Bud called us. He
Okay.
knew I was like 14, 15. He said, this old auctioneer in Iowa's got some magazines he wants to sell for $200. Well, we drive down there, met Bud and Bertie in Rochester, then drove down to Green, Iowa, I believe, is where it was, and sat on his couch for about 2 hours talking. And at the end of it, he said, "You know what? I'm just going to give you all this stuff." He said, "He didn't. I was going to buy it. My dad was going to buy it, and he said, you need to have all this." And I still have his notes from when he was an auctioneer and some of the sales catalogs and the different prices as it went up and stuff. So,
I do have one for you.
okay.
So I think it was the first 2-year-old pleasure fraternity that the POAs had. I could be wrong, but I think it was. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the first. Was in Michigan,
Okay.
and I was riding a 2-year-old for Doug Murfield, and we read the rules, but we didn't read them correctly, obviously. But it said a hackmore, snap a bit or a hackmore. Well, we didn't really know a lot, and I rode mine in a mechanical hackmore.
Okay.
Okay? Didn't know any better. And we drive out to Michigan for this 2-year-old pleasure fraternity, and they're not going to let me show. And it's just right before the class, and I'm like, "That's hackmore,
All right.
This is a hackmore." And of course, like I said, we didn't know the terms of all the stuff at the time. And they're like, "Well, can you show it in a halter?" And I'm, "Yeah, I guess." So that was my first fraternity, actually.
Oh, really?
And went ahead and let me show. I didn't do very good, but we got.
It wasn't a wreck. Yeah, I bet you still have. You learned stuff from that day, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, we honestly didn't know there was a difference at that time, So
That's a good story. So I'm glad you told that story. That's what this is about. So you got to hang around with Doug Murfield and then the Lammers and stuff and show some of the. That was a lucky break. You know what I mean? That your family knew those guys because
Doug and his father Ed, they were very influential in the POAs, and they helped us out. We rode a lot of their horses and started them for them. And then Milford Lammers, that was just a great guy. He was a super human being, and very fortunate to know him. I got to see him just a few days before he passed away. Actually, I went out to him because I used to stay out there with him. And yeah, very good people.
he put some bloodlines in POAs too, like the old Felix. He tried to raise a stud and then got a bunch of mares. So then when he got his leopard, he sold him. But they raised some nice POAs. Of course, Murfeld's did too. And Doug was very competitive. Diane and I was talking about that. He was the halter showman of his generation,
Oh yeah,
in the 70s for sure.
and I believe Doug Murfield was the first one to export a POA to. I think he sold one to Australia.
I think he was, yeah. Was it MP's Jim Silverpiece or one of those? It was a big snow cap, yeah. And well, it wasn't big, but the snow cap was big. Yeah,
Right.
I'm pretty sure you're right. If not, it was one of the first ones to go to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were the ninth members of POAs, and then they stayed with it, and then your nephews rode POAs for them. So that's a long time that Doug was in it. He was in it as a kid. So.
Yep. No, there was a lot of history with the Murfields.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I better give Drew a call before it gets too late. So. But
thank you.
Thank you so much, for doing this. And I know people find it hard to believe, but we've never spoke before this. I think we've said hello to each other, walking in a barn or something like you said. And I haven't been to too many POA shows in the last 10 years, just the national show and a few Oklahoma shows. But yeah, it was great talking to you and getting to know you a little bit, and good success. I wish you all the success with your clients and what you're doing now. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Okay.
it very much.
All right, Mike. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
You too. All right. So that was Mike Davis from Iowa, and if you ever have any reining horse needs, he's a professional, a constant professional up there in Iowa. Got a great reputation. I remember as a kid, while I was probably pushing 20, when I knew that he was in doing reining and stuff, and that he'd grown up in POAs. I had pictures of, C.A. Shiloh and him on the wall, like I did with Double Tough and all kinds of POAs from the catalogs and magazines in the early 80s. So that was great talking to Mike. We talked to his sister first, Diane, and now we just talked to Mike, who has made a name for himself in the horse industry and grew up in POAs. And now we're about ready to call Drew DeBurr, who is the middle child of the DeBurr boys, Denton, Drew, and Dylan. And Drew is also a professional horseman. He's still in the quarter horse industry, and he is in Iowa, training in Iowa. So we're going to give him a call right now and talk about some of his experiences in POAs and what he's doing now. Maybe.
Hello?
Hey, Drew, this is Kent from POAs. How are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. You're live on Facebook. I just wanted to tell you that. So.
Okay.
Okay, I was hoping you'd answer the phone because we had a great conversation with your mom and then a good one with Mike, your uncle, and I said, I don't know if we can go 3 for 3. This is the first on Black Hand and Beyond. We've never had 3 callers before, so.
Oh, cool. Yeah, glad we can make it work.
Yeah. I remember you showing as a kid, especially you and your older brother, Denton. I remember your little brother at the sale more than showing, as an exhibitor. I remember him up on the auction block and crawling under ponies with your grandpa and stuff. And
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So you're showing, you're doing a lot of NSBA stuff right now?
Yeah, we do, AQHA circuits and SBA stuff,
Okay. All right, that's cool. And you're in Iowa still, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I moved back here, be a little over a year ago now, and started my own business, and
Okay.
it's been
cool.
been good. Nice to be back in Iowa.
Were you in Texas for a while?
Well, when I graduated POAs, I went to Texas. I worked down there, and then I moved back to Iowa after that. I got a job working in Iowa for, I think I was here for probably 5 years, and then I got offered another job, which was in Illinois, at Richland Ranch. So I went over there, and I was there for 5 years.
Okay.
And then I came back home here and started my own thing.
Started your own deal. Now you have your own clients, and
Yep,
that's cool.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you and your brother close? I mean, Denton, you guys work near each other?
We
or?
work out of the same facility.
Oh, okay, same facility, but you guys are
Yeah.
independent as far as you have your own customers and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got his set of clientele, and I got my set of clientele.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So you mainly show quarter horses. You don't show like other stock breeds like paints or anything, or?
I've mainly showed quarters. I've got a few paints in here lately. But the thing about it is a lot of the paints do, the NSBA has the color stuff, so that kind of opens that avenue for me because, it's hard for me to hit both circuits because we start a lot of young horses. So to be gone, AQHA shows and then paint shows, you're talking 2-3 weekends a month where that gets really hard because the young stuff isn't at, it's at home sitting there not getting rode.
Right. And you're sitting at the show. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
get that.
So that, works out really good because, then the NSBA, you can take them. Like I said, the majority of our stuff is young. So we're talking 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. So the NSBA, they have so many classes and they have the color deal and all that. So it works out really well that I can, take some paint.
Right. Well, that makes sense. So getting back to POAs, what was some of the POAs you rode as a kid?
Oh, man. I had Winnie's Desert Storm, which the whole family rode.
Everybody rode her, yeah. Even Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, oh, gosh, I can't remember.
I'm putting you on the spot tonight. I didn't mean to do that.
I can't remember all the names. We had a stud horse that was named Fly to Gold that we kind of all rode to.
Yeah, he was a good horse, Fly the Gold.
Yeah.
He came from Rogers, and then he had some good babies too. Doug had some babies by him that you guys rode.
Yeah, for sure. We had a lot of nice horses by him, and we had a lot of, Rogers. We got a lot of nice horses from Dean and Jan.
Yeah, they raised some good ones. Well, Dean and I were pretty close. Well, Jan and I are too, but Dean and I talked several times a month, probably, maybe once a week even, but sometimes we'd get busy. But I could always rap with him about pedigrees and stuff and, different deals. But what kind of blood do you like in the quarter horses? Do you lean towards certain lines or just whatever comes down the pipe?
Yeah, I think it's kind of all, for me, I don't get stuck on a certain one just because everybody's kind of,
the flavor of the week type deal. You're not like
that.
And
I feel like, anymore there's a lot of really good studs. So, they're all worth a shot. And, yeah, I just feel like, I don't really get stuck on one. I got a majority. I actually had a son of Zippo's Mr. Goodbar that I was real successful with. And I had a 2-year-old last year that my girlfriend and I actually owned that we did really well on. So, I probably am a little partial to that because I think it's really cool that I rode the dad and then I've had success with a daughter and, so, and I got, I have quite a few of those in the barn now. So
What's his name? What's the stud's name?
The stud's name is Mr. Zippo's Goodbar.
Oh, okay. Mr. Zippo's Goodbar. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's probably like I say, I'll ride them all, but if I had one to say that I was real partial with, it'd probably be that one.
Okay. So when you go to some of these quarter horse shows, do you run into some POA kids that you remember?
All the time.
All the time. Yeah, I figured you did.
It's really it's really cool, and it's not really even it's the kids and even, they were parents back when, I was obviously younger, now they're grandparents and they got their grandkids running around and,
right.
It's really, it's cool to see.
Right. Yeah. Well, the POAs has started out a lot of equestrians for sure. Cause you're little equestrians. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Right. You got to go through a lot of POA people take it for granted, but when you're showing amongst yourself, but when you start going out into other organizations and breeds, POAs is a solid foundation for sure.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yep. So how many shows do you go to a year about?
I usually try to hit, I would say, 10 to 12. I don't, like I say, I do a lot of young stuff. So I try to do about one big horse show a month. And, sometimes that changes because you got, everybody's goals and, everybody's goals, what they start out at the beginning of the year kind of change midway through the year.
Right.
And so, you kind of just adjust to all that stuff and make it work for everybody. But I'm not a big road warrior type of guy.
You do a lot of work at home in the barn. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of a homebody too. I enjoy going to the house and,
hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mowing my lawn and stuff like that,
All right. Just kind of you're an Iowa guy. You're probably into hunting and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I get on the river quite a bit, and
Yeah.
and we canoe quite a bit, and
That's
take the
cool.
dogs, and we try to enjoy that stuff as much as we can.
Right.
It's what we do is it's a lot of work, and it takes up a lot of it's a lot of time, because what people don't realize is you've got horses, and sometimes there's what do I want to say? There's situations that arise that take longer than they should, but
Right.
it's just kind of what we do, and we're pretty immune to it, and it's no big deal to us. But to your average person, they probably look at us like we're crazy,
Right. Right, for sure. I remember this one friend of mine. He was a pleasure horse trainer in Paints, and he married a girl that grew up near me. So he built a place a couple miles down the road, and anyway, I found it fascinating. I would work a regular job and then work my horses at night, the halter horses. Now I didn't ride,
Yep.
but so I might be in the barn till 9, 10 o'clock. Well, they were the opposite. They'd get up in the morning and go work in the barn and stuff. About 5, 6 o'clock, they were going in to watch the news because he'd worked all day in the barn. So I was just getting out there, body clipping one or lunging one or whatever, and they were done.
Yeah,
for the
you
day.
were just getting started.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that really put it, in perspective for me that, well, that's what they're doing for a living. That's how they're making their money. And they would have clients coming in and out, especially on the weekend, all day and stuff. So. Yeah, we were talking about different breeds and stuff. I went to the Color Breed Congress a couple years ago, the Pinot deal over in Tulsa, and I wasn't prepared to, I'm like, I know that person from Minnesota, they show quarter horses, and I know that person, they show paints, and it was like a quarter horse show, it was kind of a who's who, and, I thought I was going to see a lot of different breeds and stuff, and here it was just a pleasure show, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it is funny too. I find that interesting too. Just like you're talking about, do I see POA people? I see them everywhere, and it's not just in one. I wouldn't say it's just quarter horses either. There's a lot of them doing, just like you say, the Color Breed Congress and stuff like that. They didn't just go from POAs to quarter horses. They win other avenues too. Which is cool.
Right. Well, there's been people over the years going to apps, which would be a natural fit, and stuff.
Yeah.
Then, of course, when paints got so popular in the 90s for a while, a lot of people did that. Your uncle went into reining. We were talking how he gravitated to reining. He could have been cutting or reining, and he kind of went into reining. And then you guys have went into more of the pleasure horse industry. So, and that, that industry's blown up in the last 20 years, and POAs is no different. POA went from well, it's still a versatile breed, but it really slanted towards pleasure,
Yep.
You were still riding in POAs when that started happening, for sure. And
yeah, for sure. And that was always that was one thing I always did think was cool. And I still think about that to this day, because I feel like our quarter horse shows have everything is so, it's almost one event, specific. And like, what people don't realize too is, starting the young horses and doing the maturities, that's kind of the basis for all the other things. And I always thought, I always think about, it's really cool to have a horse that can go and do the horsemanship, the English, the eck, and trail, Western riding. And I think, that was what was cool about the POAs, because, well, yeah, I mean, it is, and it was, whatever, it's just cool, because that's really what it should be. It should be, you should have a horse, and that's kind of really old school foundation, but you should have a horse that you can show in the halter, go in the pleasure, show in the hunt seat, and have an all day, a family horse. And I feel like, our industry has got so specialized a little bit to where, a family, I think about that too a lot. We did it all as a family, mom, dad, grandparents, brothers, the whole nine.
Right.
Where now, you have a mother and a daughter, and, it's kind of a little bit boring for the dad to come, because, he comes for 6 or 7 days, and he's going to watch his daughter show, 2 of those days, and she's going to show for about 3 minutes of time. And he's sitting there thinking, well, this isn't a crazy amount of fun. I'm standing around here and I got a million things I could be doing, So I feel like
Right.
if we had a little more of that to where it was more everybody going and everybody having fun, I feel like it would definitely make the industry better.
Well, what I like about POAs, and it's still that way now, the age has changed, but you might as well say the little kids, the middle age, and then the 14 through 18 now, but it used to be 13, through 18.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have, here'd come the little kids, and then the middle, and then so your kids would come back through every third class, or every fourth class, and then, and you'd show pleasure and English, and then and then Western, and then all of a sudden the horsemanship and all that, and then here come games, and everybody kind of competed, and some kids might come out that didn't. So I think that's what still keeps POAs going. It's had its bumps along the way, and it's so hard to get respect. I don't know if it's the word pony or what, but you guys going out there and doing what you do, and all the other POA kids that have done stuff, we need to really promote that, because even though you're not in POAs now, you guys still love POAs, and you gained a lot from POAs. And you're competitive in a horse world, from coming from the pony world. So, I think that needs to be on, out there, on banners. Say, hey, we've created all these kids, and we have for a long time, like your Uncle Mike and Kevin Jewell. Mike ain't mentioned him, how he's one of the top judges going, and he was a POA kid, and as a little kid, and there's a lot of others I could go on with examples like that. So,
guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, Drew, I don't want to keep you too long. I've had great conversations with all three, your mom, your uncle, and you. So Denton got out of it because he had an excuse. So you were a great guest. So maybe another time I'll interview Denton talking about, I don't know, stallions that showed in POAs or something. Who knows?
Yep.
But,
yep, for sure.
So, well, I'm glad you were a part of this. A lot of people commented, and I know this will get a lot of views. So you keep up the good work out there, and good luck to you and all your customers.
Hey, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
Drew,
it.
have a good night.
You too.
Thanks. All right, that was Drew DeBurr, a young man from Iowa. He grew up in POAs along with his older brother Denton and his little brother Dylan. Of course, his mom grew up in POAs, Diane, and she raised her three sons in POAs. Now the oldest two are professional horsemen in the quarter horse industry. They've gravitated to the pleasure world, and he was talking about some bloodline. I'm into bloodlines and stuff of a lot of breeds, not just POAs. So it was enjoyable. I always ask people, like I asked Mike, some of the bloodlines he liked over the years, and then Drew. So that didn't disappoint. I'm really happy how this episode turned out. I wear my emotions on my sleeve a lot of times in life, and I'm just happy that this went so well. All three of these people were great guests, Diane, Mike, and Drew. And I hope you guys really enjoyed the show. We have another great show coming up next week. Brooklyn from Wisconsin. She's the #1 rider in the nation for 2022. She's going to be our special guest. As you remember last year, one of our best watched shows that year was the first show. We called it Levi and Tommy. And that was her little brother, Levi. He was High Point the year before. Now it was her turn this year. And she rides a very, very beautiful DK's pony, a loud leopard. And we're going to talk about some color in POAs too. Her mom, Susie, will probably join us too on the phone. And so it'll be about Brooklyn and her POA, young POA career so far, and maybe they'll talk about the young POA she's starting to show. And then we're also going to talk about some really loud colored POAs throughout history, and there will be pictures throughout the week. That's how I do it now. I kind of changed the format this year to show just to kind of have interviews, and I think it's going well. Please give me your feedback, and if you have any questions or concerns or comments, just instant message me. And again, think of some loud colored POAs. If you want to send me pictures, I'll post them all week on the POA history group, and then we'll talk next week just on here live. So another great show. Again, thank you to Diane DeBurr, her brother Mike Davis, and then Drew DeBurr. From all three live in Iowa, and all three grew up showing POA. So thank you to everybody that commented tonight and watched. Tell all your friends how to get onto the POA history group. We have 2,700 members and they're growing every day. So, all right, everybody, good night. Enjoy the song.
My BFF is a POA. We go together like PB and J. It takes talent and it takes brains. Fixing us together with a set of brains. Don't get down, we just saddle up. Sounds in the rhythm of the war run up. All with partners and potentiality. My pony and me.